You know, that's just another thing that I love about South Carolina. When the governor shows up and makes me feel overdressed.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. You're fine. You're fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're fine. We've been fighting the fight, I promise you. Just stay with me here for just a couple seconds. I picked the boys up. They're feeling awkward right now. They're looking at Dad thinking, what's Dad doing to us this time? But I picked them up from school this afternoon, and I said, I got a little project for y'all. They thought it was going to be something, well, it is going to be exciting. They just don't fully appreciate it right now. But I said, you guys got to come with me because we're going to drive to Greenville. At this point, they begin to frown just a little bit. And I said, I want you all to come with me to see some Patriots. And I say Patriots because if you look at the pages of history, they are dotted with example after example after example of civilizations that spent their way into oblivion, and you all have gathered here on a Friday night when there are 1,000 other things that you might be doing to say, wait a minute, not on my watch. Not on my watch. I care too much about my country. I care too much about my grandkids. I care too much about the America that my kids will grow up in to not make the stand that every one of you all are making as patriots here tonight. So Blake, what's a patriot look like? Just point out. So anyway, thank you for being patriots. I'm here also, though, to say, no. I'm here also, though, to say thank you for realizing where we are in history, which is there are certain points in any civilization, in any person's life, in any business, where it's gut check time. And I believe that we're at a real gut check in terms of the American civilization on what comes next, and there are two paths in the road. One that has horrible consequences with the value of the currency in terms of inflation, in terms of a lot of bad things, and the other is going back to that very thing that made this country great, which is what was yelled at just a moment ago, pushing toward freedom, which means lower taxes, less government, and all the other things that are building blocks toward that end. I would finally say thank you on this front, which is if you're a sane human being, there have been moments over the last couple weeks wherein you get a little bit discouraged. You think, you know, have I just completely missed the boat? Have I completely missed the boat? Or is there in fact a silent majority out there who believes no? And so, you know, there have been a lot of politicians, whether in Washington, D.C., or for that matter, Columbia, South Carolina, who've said bad things about the stimulus, but then they've said, take the money, take the money, take the money. And what I want to say, Jim DeMint is somewhere back here. I guarantee he's had some of these lonely days over the last couple of weeks and months as well. It means so much that you all would stand as you do on a Friday night for the way that encourages those of us who've been pushing in the direction that we've been pushing. And I want to say thank you on that front as well. So the bottom line is that you're here, I'm here, we're here, and I guess the big question is where do we go from here? And I couldn't quite hear that one. Okay, I got it. All right. On that front, then, here, I'll put it this way. Would you say, speaking of saying no, is it a good idea to add $1 trillion worth of debt to the country this year? Do you want to raise taxes to pay for that debt that would be added this year? Do you think it's wise for government to run bigger deficits and spend more than it ever has in the history of this country? Do you think it's wise to bail out big auto companies, big insurance companies, big banks, and big state governments while not helping little businesses across this state and across this country? I mean, since we agree on those no's, my simple idea would be this. You may have seen Cal Thomas had an article this week in the paper, and it simply said this: not a penny more. Not a penny more until reforms are made in big insurance companies, in big banks, in big autos, in big state governments. Not a penny more. And I would ask that all of us look for ways, not just in this rally here tonight, but over the weeks and months ahead, to push your will forward in saying not a penny more. I would also say it's so important that we use this tax day really as a rallying cry to push people in state government to say we have got to change the way that business is done. Can we do that? Can we use this tax week as a way of reminding folks that that we are at that gut checkpoint, and that it is incredibly important that we wake up the American public and our neighbors to the dangers. A little bit louder, all right, a little bit louder, I got you. All right, I'll hold it closer. Would we remind our neighbors that there is an incredible danger to adding debt to solve a problem that was created by too much debt? Can we do that? Can we remind our neighbors that we can't spend our way into prosperity? Can we do that? Can we remind our neighbors that you can't print dollars that you don't have and expect not good things to happen to the currency and to, frankly, the American way of life? Can we remind our neighbors that our country was in fact founded on that simple notion of no taxation without representation? And can we use this tax week, finally, I guess, to remind our neighbors that there is no such thing as free money. It doesn't exist in Washington, D.C. It doesn't exist in Columbia, South Carolina. And that there is no Santa Claus in Washington, D.C., and even stimulus dollars fall into that larger path of, again, not being free in nature. Can we do that? Can we remind our neighbors that, this old-fashioned notion of paying down debt when you have the chance to do so isn't such a bad idea, particularly if you're fourth in the United States of America, as South Carolina is, in spending money to pay back debt. We're fourth in the United States of America. And finally, I would simply say this. Would you remind your neighbors, and can we use this tax week as in fact a chance to remind ourselves that nothing just happens in life. Everything happens in life, one, because of God's providence, God's will, and the other part of what makes things happen is our will. And so if you look at the history, there on the back of $1, you'll see that pyramid with the all-seeing eye of God at the top of the pyramid, and the pyramid that represented the Israelites' voyage, if you will, their travel out of Egypt to the Promised Land. And the reason that was put on the back of $1 was to remind of Americans, then and now, that America represented that shining city on the hill. It represented the Promised Land, and it came here because of God's will and a whole lot of people working awfully hard at their own will. And so What is so important now in this day, in this time, this age that we live in, is that we apply our individual wills to making a difference in holding the line on government spending, holding the line on taxes, holding the line on spending money we don't have, and holding the line on issuing debt on an account that doesn't have the money in the bank. Can we do that this week? Thanks again for what y'all are doing. I very much admire it.